don't want to start without first having Paulo Gelser, our president and CEO, address you guys and thank you for your attendance.
Morning to all. I see we got somebody new in the group. Is our first webinar, and is a webinar for administrators Anna will conduct. And I think we all have questions about how to use the system and how to get the most out of our system. And I welcome you all to this first webinar. Before we start, I would just like to say that the Institute is planning to improve and expand our existing offering significantly for this year. We are getting new things in, and I invite, if anybody has interested in joining the advisory board, please do. And there we're going to discuss. A meeting is planned for May 8th. It's a webinar too, to discuss the new strategy, and what we are doing is to improve and expand on what we already have. And so I would like to invite whoever has interest. Anna can give the information later. So I think we are planning big things here, and we will continue to do more seminars. So as we go this year, you will see new things coming. I think much more powerful and interesting for you to develop your people and to make use of the tools that we have. So this being said, I want to welcome all of you. And I will to remind the few that came in to please mute your phone so it doesn't give feedback to all of the others participating. And I will pass it to Anna Velasquez. Thank Anna. I think the agenda is good because you will get to see some things about obviously the administrator role that are important, and Anna will cover this in an hour. And for those that have interest in getting involved and knowing more about where we are going, what we are doing for the future, let her know in the end or send us an email. And we will give you our webinars that are to discuss our strategy for 2012 and 13. So thank you, and thank you for being part of the Institute, and thank you for using the Institute. And we'll start the webinar right now.
Okay, guys, everybody is able to see that IGA logo screen?
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm going to do, and this is how we're going to work, I'm going to just share my desktop. So you're going to be able to see everything that I have in my computer. We are going to start with a PowerPoint that it's a brief session. We're going to start with discussing a little bit about how the system works, what the technical aspects of the learning management system that we have. And then what we are going to do is, in this agenda, we're going to do a demo. And in the demo, what we're going to cover is we're going to go over our website. There's a few things that I want to make sure that all of you have access to and are aware that they exist. We're going to go into the navigator, the piece that the students use, and talk about a few things in there, and then we're going to concentrate on the wizard and the reports. We have a lot of people registered. We have, I lost count at 75. So there's going to be a lot of people, and people have different systems and different versions of Excel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to maintain the one example on my system, and then later on, if necessary, and you guys agree, we can have a separate session maybe next week at the same time where we can do practice exercises because there's a lot of information, and I want to make sure that at least you are aware of what the tools are. And then we are going to finish with a question and answer session. So I'm going to go a little fast on that first PowerPoint part. I do these webinars very often, and I always tell people this is a webinar for you, and I want to make sure that whatever your questions are, we answer. So keep And if you have a question, please stop me at any time, and I'll be very happy to address it. Don't leave things in the back burner. If something is bothering you, it doesn't make sense, or doesn't look right to you, just speak up and let us know. If not, if I don't get questions, I'm going to keep going on, okay? A couple of things about webinar etiquette. I just said that. Please ask questions at the time you have them, and try to keep your speaker phones muted. Obviously, when you have to ask a question, just unmute it and yell at me, and I'll be happy to address that. But that will help us clear up the channel of communication. The first thing that I want to address is it goes to what Paulo was saying. What we're trying to do with the Institute is create a learning culture. As many of you know, you go to a seminar, you learn a lot of new stuff, and then you come back home and you go to your job, and nobody else share your experience. So it's very hard. And there goes Anna. I need to. Okay, sorry about that. When you get back to your office, because people don't share your experience, it's very hard to make changes that are permanent. So what we're giving you is a tool that is going to allow you to train your people, and everybody's going to be on the same page. We're trying to make sure that you develop your people to be able to adapt and change and meet the needs of your business to stay competitive. And the only way that you can do that is making sure that they are used and comfortable with the learning process, that your store is a store that when something new comes, your employees feel comfortable changing what they've been doing and adapting to whatever new technologies we have. For those of you, we have a very diverse group here. We have people that are totally new to the Institute, and we have people that are very experienced. So I'm going to try to keep it down in the middle. But for those of you who are new, we cover 3 areas of knowledge. We do classroom training with the supermarket management class that we do once a year. But our bread and butter really is the online training. And to that online training, we have a resource center that is part of our website, but we have a lot of additional resources, career plans, logos, archives, a lot of materials that are going to be very useful for you. So those are our 3 main areas of expertise. In the online training, currently we have 89 courses. Last year, we launched 12 new courses. That means that an average of a new course a month. So you need to be aware of what's coming out, so you can assign those new courses to the new people that are in your store. We also updated last year 19 courses. That means that these were courses that were totally reviewed. These are total new versions. So you can be comfortable that the courses that your students are using at your store are not courses that have been sitting there for 7 years. We've been working in the Institute since 2003 with the online courses, and none of the courses are in their original version. Actually, most of them now are in a 4th or 3rd or 4th version. So we make it a point to keep our courses updated and relevant to what's going on these days. And obviously, we do a lot of translation along with the development. To organize our courses, to make them easier to handle, we have created a system of libraries that will allow you to figure out who should be taking what course. And the first library we have is the Getting Started. And that contains the course that is critical for everybody to take. That's the Welcome to Online Training. With that course, we're freeing you from having to train all your students in how to use the system. That course will tell them how to navigate, how to get their certificates, how to do the testing. All those things are going to be in that course. Then you have the General Knowledge Library, which really covers everything that is related. We have a Convenience Library, which are 3 courses that grew out of the supermarket library that have been customized just for that particular. We continue with the supermarket library, which is kind of the courses that you're going to assign to people who are working in particular positions. We have IGA library, these are courses that are specific for IGA stores. We got logistics, we got US, and those are courses that are basically compliance for programs that are specific to the US, like the WIC program. And finally, we have the management library. That is for those people who have a little more experience in the business, who have a different role than just working on the floor. I just want to show this slide because I think it's important to see what the Institute is doing. Last year, we grew 328%, which was well above what our expectations were. We were planning to have 200,000 enrollments, and we ended up with 305,000 enrollments. That was a very significant growth, and that goes to say that this is a very solid program, that people who are using it well, and they trust and use it to develop their people. So we've been here since 2003, and it's always been an upward movement of growth. There are 4 characteristics that we believe set this system aside, and the first one is obviously value. You're not going to find anything cheaper or better quality than this that is directly linked to the supermarket industry. It's easy to use. I've been here 6 years, and I have never encountered anybody that has not been able to use the system. If you can point and click and you can read, you shouldn't have any issues using the program. Measurability is a very important part of this system. Because this is not like putting a video and having somebody sit in front of it and you don't know what they were thinking. Maybe they were thinking on their date that night. If you are working on these online training systems, you know you have a testing associated with the work you're doing, so you better pay attention to be able to pass that test. And that test is going to be recorded, and management is going to be able to track the progress and the knowledge that the students are acquiring. And the flexibility part, which is what makes everything much easier, it's a 24/7 system, so people can train at any time, anywhere. And it has a double fold, that flexibility aspect. And he said it's a system that is flexible enough that will adapt to whatever processes you already have in place. We want to give you a tool that is not going to have to make you reconfigure everything you do in your store. We want to give you a tool that will integrate to your process and make your program in training so much more robust. Any questions about what we've talked about? Do I move along? Okay, since your phones are muted, I guess I'll go along. Just remember to unmute if you have any questions. Now we're going to talk specifically about the tool that we have. That is known as a LMS, or Learning Management System. So what we're giving you is much more than just a collection of courses. We have a complete system that is going to allow you to do the training, track it, manage it, and grow it. The first thing you need to know is that you have to set up your computer properly. Obviously, any system requires an internet connection. The browser should be Internet Explorer. You will be able to access the program with other browsers, but when you get to the testing phase, it might give you some problems. So to be on the safe side, always make sure that you're using Internet Explorer. That is the system that doesn't fail. Your computer security should be set up at medium, and that is because there's a lot of interaction between our servers and your computers. So if you have high security, the tests are not going to get into your computer, the results are not going to be moving or flowing the way they should. So if you have a computer, you're using a computer at work that has important or sensitive information, please reconsider getting a different computer, or just consider that you're going to have your security at medium. You need to have your pop-up blocker turn off, because a lot of the screens come up as pop-ups. Your computer might read it as pop-ups and block them, so you will not be able to see the content. Obviously, there is a lot of audio involved, so the computer should have volume, and if it's if students are gonna be working in an environment where there's other people, other things going on, make sure you get headphones. It does help people concentrate better. So that's my computer setup. Let's talk about the LMS in detail. And this is just for reference for you. What we have, the piece that we have has three components. The first one is the assembler, and this is the tool that we use to design the courses. This is where we build the courses, create the materials. There is a knowledge manager, which is the tool that I use to manage the system, create the stores, do the hierarchies, and all that good stuff. And there is the navigator. That is the part that you guys work on. That is your portal of access to the reports, the wizards, and the courses. And all these three pieces are closely integrated, but you're going to be working basically on the navigator. How the program runs, first thing we do is just obviously register your store, and it's in red because that's something that we do here. We set up your hierarchy, we control that part. But after that, everything that happens in the management of the online training, you have access to. And we have been working with new research that will give you a lot more control. And that's why one of the reasons we decided to do this webinar, to make sure that you are aware of all the tools that you have available. So you go ahead and you register your employees, your students. The students self-manage their learning process. You really don't have to enroll anybody. You just tell them what courses they need, and they just go in, enroll in the courses, do their testing, the system grades it, and they get the certificate. On the other hand, what you have to do, and it's an important part of tracking the progress of the system, you can't have a good system if you don't have some checks in place. So that's why it's so important to do the report, see what's going on. So you design whatever cycle it works for your organization, and you run your reports consistently so you can monitor the progress. In terms of maintenance, it's very little what's required. Basically, if somebody leaves the store, you need to inactivate that account. I used to do that, but now you're going to have the access to be able to inactivate a student account. You're going to be able to change their username, their password, their email addresses, and you're even going to be able to collect additional information that we're not using now, but you're going to be able to use that the system to track a lot of information.
I'm going.
Oh, you're going.
I'm working on LinkedIn, but let me get there.
Guys, if you just joined a little later, make sure that your phone is muted so we don't hear your personal conversation at the office. So we were talking about the maintenance. So this is basically all that it takes to manage the system. There are obviously best practices and other processes that happen in the store, operational processes, that are reflected in the LMS. But to manage the tool, this is all you have to do. Register your people, assign, tell them what courses to take, do the reports, and maintain those accounts with the changes that come up down the line. Let's talk a little bit about how your stores are set up in the system. Obviously, you have a store which is known in the system as a business unit. And I point that out because in the report, you always see business unit and a lot, or BU, parent, or BU something. That refers to business unit, and the business unit is always going to be the store, the big bucket where everybody is under. You also have a different kind of grouping, and those are known as knowledge positions. There are two types of users in the system. The manager, coordinator, administrator, supervisor. Different organizations give it different names, but basically that blue box represents the person that has access to the reporting tool. And that is the main difference between you guys who are administrators and the employee accounts. The accounts when you go into the system look exactly the same. The only difference is that when you go to the tools link, you're going to have a lot of more choices than a regular student would. So those are the two types of accounts, managers, and employees. And those are the terms that the system used natively. A manager is a person who has access to reports, and an employee is just using the system to train. And if you have multiple organizations, what happens is we duplicate that hierarchy and then tie it up on the top with a headquarter. The way the access runs, a manager or coordinator from store A is only going to be able to have access to the employees that are under their organization. They will not be able to see anybody in store B. However, the people who are at the top of the organization, at the headquarters, like we call them regularly, those will have access to everything that is below you. So basically, it's a one-direction control or access. You can only see where you are or below you. You can never see above you or sideways. So that's how the hierarchies work. A little bit of how the structure works, and I bet a lot of you are familiar with this. The only thing that I'm going to point out is that all those dotted lines stand for the nonlinear fashion of the courses. A student can start in part 3 and then go to part 1. The important thing is that they pass all the post-tests and that they get their certificate. But in which order they work on the system, we would rather have them work in a linear fashion, but if they choose not to, it's not going to be a problem. In terms of the certification, and this I want to reiterate, because a lot of people are not clear on how this works. And the first thing that I'm going to point out regarding the certifications is that this is a third-party certification. This is you're giving an option to your people to learn and train and acquire new knowledge. But this is something that they are doing on their own. They're putting their effort and their energy in learning this content. And if they ever leave your store, they still leave with that content. So it's basically an investment that you guys are making, an investment of time and money and effort in growing them. So let them know that this is a unique opportunity. One of the things that we've been talking about is getting our courses credited so they can count for community college or college credit. So once that happens, this is going to be a much more valuable tool for use. It's a bigger benefit that you're giving your associates. In terms of how it works, you need an 80% score to pass. There are customized tutorials, and if you're not paying attention when you're doing your courses, you might miss this. And what happens is that the system gives you a break. If you score anywhere between 50 and 79%, the system is smart enough to go and pull out the content that you got wrong in your test, and it puts it together, and it gives you a mini test for that area. And if you pass that, then you pass the whole part. So it cuts you some slack. But remember, it's only going to be if you score between 50 and 79%. If you score below 50, you got to redo the whole thing. There's no break there.
Hey, Anna.
Yes, go ahead.
Anna, this is Wade in Great Falls. This might be too early in the seminar to ask the question, but since you're on the certification page, but we do the program and we highly recommend it. But what one of our questions was, is there a possibility, or will there be a possibility, to have a group session to where each person could sign in and get their own individual certificate versus doing one at a time? I'll give you a small example. When they passed the law that everybody has to be recertified in alcohol awareness, this certificate counts as that. It would be nice at that time to have a group of 5 or 10 cashiers in a room and get them to save some time and money and certify them all at one time and be able to get them personalized certificates at that time versus doing one at a time. Is that something that is in the works or is a possibility?
The thing is, you can, and a lot of people do that. They have group sessions and they review the courses together, and then everybody. But the thing is that the part to get the actual certificate, each person needs to log into their account and take their individual testing. So you can do the review session together. There's no problem with doing that. But then you need to make sure that each individual logs in, takes their test, because it's going to be their individual performance what's going to get them the certificate.
So we would go through the whole session, and then when it's over, each person would have to sign into their own thing and fast forward to the test and take it?
They can, exactly, they can do that.
But nothing in the works as far as being able to do that, sign into a page where everybody registers their name and then certificates would come out at the end once we were all done.
At this point, no, we don't have anything, because there would not be any other way. If you do it as a group session, there would not be any other way to actually track their program.
Okay.
Their progress.
Thank you.
You know, you want them to have their own questionnaire. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
But good question. So we were on the double randomization. And what the system does, we want to make sure that people are not trying to beat the system and copy answers, or somebody sits and do a key and pass it along to everybody to do. But what the system does, it first, every time a student hits a post test, what's happening is that computer is sending a request to the server to generate a unique test for that person. And there is a selection, a pool of questions for each topic in the test. So randomly, those questions are selected and put into a test for that individual student. There is double randomization because besides all the questions in your test are randomly picked, the answers are also randomly picked. Meaning that if you get the same question twice, maybe the first time you see that question, the right answer is going to be in A, and the second time it might be in C. Still the right answer, but it might be in a different place. So we try to make sure that people are learning and they know what they're answering, not just guessing or trying to copy from somebody else's experience. And something that makes people feel a lot of at ease is the fact that it's an unlimited retesting. They can take the test 1, 2, 3 times, 5, 10. We really don't care. What we care is that somebody learns the content and is able to pass the test. How many times it takes them is irrelevant. Moving along, there are a couple of tools that I want to make sure that everybody is aware. We have for the administrators, the People Development Program. And this is something that there is a written manual for this that contains a lot of information, tools, content about training. And we do orientations when somebody joins. And a lot of you have I've seen the names of some of the participants, and I know some of you have gone through that. We also have a help desk, so anybody can call us and ask any questions. So I always stress, if you're struggling with something, just pick up the phone and call us. We'll be able to help you and save you a lot of time and effort giving you the right answer right away. You have total control over student registration, so you don't have to wait for us. And you have access to the reports and wishes, which is what we're going to concentrate today. There is self-enrollment, gradebook, and resources for the students. There are some incentives. I just want to point out that my tips, and that my tips really is a tool for people to give us some feedback and information about the courses. And we reward them. We have a learning incentives program, which is a team program that recognizes how much training students have done. And we can talk about that later. I just want to run and get into the actual application so we can see the good stuff. I'm just going to go to our homepage. And one thing that I want to point out, if you have multiple language users and you want to register them directly into their language, for example, if you have people in your store that are native Spanish speakers and they feel more comfortable doing the training in Spanish, If you want to register them and to have their default language be Spanish, make sure that you register using the Spanish window. Just click on the Spanish flag on the top, the website changes to Spanish, and then you use that inscribir estudiante. And that will be your link to register somebody with the Spanish as a default. The same thing for Chinese, Portuguese, and Russian. So that is the registration part. There is information in the frequently asked questions. It has a lot of how-tos in there. I'm not going to go into that in detail. There's something that I want to point out in the Resource Center. If you come in here, there is some information that is behind the firewall that is only available to people who have administrators' rights. So you come here, and actually I'm going to try to make this bigger. And I come here and I click intranet, and when I click that, it's asking me for my username and password. And I type it. And I have, if I click People Development Program, here is that guide that I told you that we have available that people receive when they do the orientation. So that's the document. You can come here and explore it. And we also have the career plan. And this is very, very valuable. These are Word-based documents, and this is what you can use to assign courses. We have, for example, here at the bakery clerk, you have a job description. And based on that job description, we make recommendations of what online courses somebody in that position should be taking. There's also on the job training procedures. And being a Word document, you can take this and customize it, put your logo, add courses, remove courses, make it your own. But always very highly recommended that you go ahead and use this, because it's kind of a contract with your associate and formalizes training. Let me get out of here, and I'm just gonna go and log in into my account. Go home, and I log in, and let's jump directly into the research and reports. I'm sorry. I'm going to choose courses, and it doesn't matter which page I choose, all courses or enroll courses. I'm always going to get these tools links. So I'm on the top left corner, and I click tools, and in there, what I'm going to have is my research and reports available. So I'm going to start with the new one, which is the most important and actually the easiest one to use. I'm going to the user details. This is something that is available it's been available for a week or two at the most. So when I click on that, it's giving me a brief description there. I just click next step, and I find a user that I want to modify their account, and this is only for one student at a time, obviously. So I'm going to pick my friend Jennifer Lopez, who's here with us, and I'm clicking on Jennifer, and I click next step, and actually, guys, this is exactly what I use to manage the account. So now you have access to that manager piece, knowledge manager piece that we talked at the beginning. The first thing that I can do is on the status is activate or inactivate an account. And this is important to know that we are not really deleting anybody. What we're doing is we're canceling the access to that person. And this is a benefit because if somebody leaves the company and then comes back, you can just come here and activate their account, and all their records are going to be intact. So they don't have to start from scratch. They don't lose any of their previous history in training. So this is where you're coming. Every time a new employee, every time an employee leaves the company, come here and inactivate their account. You can change any of the information, first name and You can change their work email. You can add other work information. The email address, this is their home email address or their home information, and the language. So if I want to make sure that Jennifer is working on Spanish only, I can change here and make her language default to Spanish. I click next step. I can add any remarks or any notes about Jennifer, and I'll be able to report on all this information. So this is not dead sitting details. This is information that you are going to be able to pull out in your report. I click next step, and I complete it. The only trick about this wizard is that you have to get to the end to make sure that those changes are saved. So remember, if you need to make a change of name, somebody get married, if you need to change an email account because they canceled, they have a new account now, if you have to inactivate people, remember to use the user details wizard. So any questions about this? This is my glory point here. If they're not, then let's go into another wizard that is not as simple as that. We have the assign remove people from knowledge position. And this wizard, what it does is gives you control to move people from buckets, from stores, from groups. Go ahead. Any questions? Okay. If, for example, if you have multiple stores and somebody jumps from one store to another, this is the wizard that you're going to use to make that change. If somebody has an account as an employee and now you want to make them an online training coordinator, you can change that access. You can jump that person from the employee bucket to the administrator bucket. So now you have that control. Before you had to go through me, so I can give that access, but now you have that ability right here. So let's see how this works. Always the first screen is instructions and an overview of the report. I'm just gonna keep going until I find my knowledge position box. So remember that I told you that before in the PowerPoint that we have knowledge position. There are two knowledge positions. So for us to figure out what we have available, the best thing to do is just concentrate on the knowledge position ID or identifier. And that translates into your store code. So I'm going to enter my store code here for my demo store, which is 000. I click next step, and it's going to tell me, okay, 000, my store code, has these groups associated. It has a Spanish account, which is empleado. It has an English account, and it has a manager account. And depending on how your system is set up, it could be administrator and student, but it's basically the same concept, the same access. So what I want to do is I want to move somebody. What I recommend is when you start doing this, always write down what is it that you want to do so you don't get lost. So what I want to do is I want to move Jennifer from the English bucket into the Spanish bucket because she wants to work on Spanish mainly. So I'm going to choose empleado, which is the Spanish bucket. I click the circle next to it. I click next step. And now it's asking me, what do you want to do? You want to assign this person to this group, or you want to remove it? I want to assign it. So I click assign, and I click next step. And I'm going to look for her last name, which is Lopez. And I click next step. And it's going to find anybody who's Lopez in my group. And I click Jennifer, and I do next step. And it's telling me, okay, you're about to assign Jennifer to the empleado ES. Is this correct? Yes, that's what I want to do. And I click next step. And I'm done. So it's as simple as knowing where do you want to put the person and dropping them in that bucket. Now, because I move her, I want to deactivate her. I always have to deactivate Jennifer from her old group. So I'm gonna go ahead and assign remove another user. So I'm gonna go through the same process again. Nothing's different except that I'm gonna remove her. So I go back, I wanna see, I'm gonna enter my store code on the position ID, and I'm gonna click next step. And now I wanna remove Jennifer from her old position, which was English employee. So I click employee, I click next step, and now I wanna remove her. So I click remove, and I click next step, and I select Jennifer, who I want to move out, and then I do next step, and I say, I confirm, yes, I want to remove her, and I click next step, and I'm done. So it's not hard, but for using this wizard, always make sure that you have in paper what is it that you want to do, so you don't miss a step, you don't have people register in 2 different groups. So to keep things clear, just make your notes and then go into the wizard. Any questions about that? Do you like it?
Yep.
Good. So let me go. We are done. We have 1 hour. We're straight into an hour. Okay. Let's go into the one-click report because I want to make sure that you guys are comfortable with how to do a couple of things in Excel. So I'm going to run my one-click report, which is going to give me access to everything that is going on in my store for the last 12 months. So I click download report, and it's going to open automatically in Excel. So this is going to be your workhorse of reports. I click open, and it gives me a bunch of information here. And if I don't know what I'm looking at, it can be a little confused. So what I'm gonna do is first I'm just gonna open it up. All I did was I clicked on the square on the top left. I clicked that, selected everything, and double clicked on the separation between the columns, and it automatically expands my column. And now that I can see all the information completely, I'm just going to highlight my heading. So I click on the number 1, and it highlights my top row, and I'm going to make that bold. And for what I'm going to be using, I don't need the BU number. I need the BU parent, which is, remember, business unit. I want to know which store this person belongs to. I don't need the BU number. So I'm just going to go ahead and select that column and right-click on my mouse and delete it. So I took that out. So I want to keep the store. I want to keep the employee name, the name of the course, the date when they register. So I'm just going to make this easier to read. So I'm just going to leave the word registration in there. I'm going to keep only the complete word in here so my columns are smaller. And I'm going to keep only the drop word there. And I'm going to go ahead and select everything and click in between 2 of the columns on the top bar where the letters are, and that's going to resize everything. So what do I do with everything that I have here? I just have a bunch of information, but I don't know what it means. Either I go down this list and start counting stuff, which is going to take me a lot of time and introduce a lot of errors, or I can use filters and count to help. So if I want to see what courses have been taken in my store, I'll use a filter to tell me what are the courses that my people have enrolled in. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to click my C column, and that's my course title. And I'm going to go to data, and I'm going to use filter, and I'm going to use advanced filter. So I'm going data, filter, advanced filter. And this process is in that getting started guide, so you don't have to know the specifics, remember all the details, but at least I want to make sure that you are aware of how it works and how it looks. So it's telling me, okay, what do you want to filter? Well, I want to copy this information into a different location. So I'm going to select copy to another location, asking me list range. Okay, what list am I looking at? Well, I'm looking at the course title list, and that's what is selected. And where do I want to copy it? I want to copy it here. And in Excel, always make sure that you leave 1 or 2 columns in between tables, because that way it will be seen as separate tables. If you put them one next to another, it's going to read them all as one big chunk. So I'm copying it to column I, and I'm clicking on unique records, because I only want one instance of each one of the courses. So I click OK, and it's not liking it because there is a problem. When you get a report, if you look at the tab name has different characters that Excel doesn't like. So to do this kind of filter, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my whole content. I'm going to copy, and I'm going to open a new workbook, and I'm going to paste it. So I clean my data, I created a new work file, and I'm going to do my processing. I go to data, I click filter, advanced filter. I tell it that I want to copy it to a different location. I'm telling it which location. I'm going into copy to and clicking on my I column, and I choose unique records, and I click OK. And what the system did was it said, okay, looked at all the courses, and it gave me all the courses that have been used at least once in my company, in my group. So I want to see how many courses are there. I can type 1 and 2 here. And I can double click here, and it's going to number my whole list. And it's going to go exactly as long as my list is. So I type 1, 2, and then double click in the little box on the corner. Now, I want to see how many enrollments I have for my courses. So I go to the cell next to the first course name. And with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a count. I'm going to say, okay, go to my main data and count how many times this course is listed. So I go to functions, and I click on the little F icon next on the bar on the top, and I do count if. I select count if, that's going to be my function. I click OK, and it's asking me, okay, tell me where do I have to look and what do I have to look for. That's what range and criteria means. So my range is going to be the course title. My criteria is going to be this course, because I'm looking how many times that Bendindo course it's been taken. So I click OK, and it gives me the result. That course has had 2 enrollments in my group. And instead of doing that process for each one of the courses, I just click my number, the cell where my number 2 is, and I double click on that little black square that is on the right lower corner. So when I click on that, it gives me a count for all the courses that I have. So now I know that the managing people course has been taken, has had 15 enrollments. So that is my enrollment count. But what if I want to find out my completion count? Well, there is a way to do that. And what we have to do first is sort our main table by completion. So we have all the completions together. So I'm going to go and select using the columns. I'm going to select all my columns for that table, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to click data, and then I sort it, and I'm going to sort it by completed things. I'm clicking completed, click OK, and it does sort my table, and now I have all the completion courses together. Okay? So I'm going to do the same process. I go to the cells next to the course name. I double click on that. I click the function icon. I'm going to do a count again. and it's going to ask me where do you want to count. Now I don't want to count the whole list. I want to count only the ones that are completed. So I count the name. I click on the first name of the course, the first course, and I look where my completion column ends. And my completion column ends at management best practices. So I hold my shift key down and I click management best practices. And you can see that it's now highlighted only that select group of courses. So that is my range. Now I need to choose my criteria. And my criteria, what is it going to be looking for? It's going to be looking for the Benvindo course. And I click OK. But before I click OK, I want to make sure that it's always going to be looking at that group. And I ensure that by typing a dollar sign next to the cell. So I do shift, and I do shift and 4, so I put a dollar sign before the 2 and a dollar sign before the 9. And I click OK. And the course has not been completed. To run the whole list, I double click on my little square on the lower right corner, and now I have all my completion. So that is the process in Excel to do to get your enrollment and completions in just one single table. Any questions? Does this seem useful for you guys?
I have a question.
Sure.
How would you go about, if you look at row number 30, on your course title on the right column, there are just a number of strange characters. Is there a way to keep those from becoming strange characters and what they should be?
You know, we reported that as a bug, and in this case, those strange characters are processed in Chinese.
Oh, okay. So I won't
So
worry about
in
that.
English, you will not have that. That only happens with Chinese, Russian, and Spanish and Portuguese characters that have like accents or that kind of stuff. But in English, it won't happen.
All right, thank you.
That's a good point. That is a very good point. Any questions about that?
Hi, Anna.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. I hear you.
Yes. How do you find out the number of employees who are actually doing courses at the store using that same page?
You can do exactly the same thing. In exactly the same procedure. The only thing is that your master column is not going to be the course title. It's going to be the employee. So I can do exactly the same thing. Like I don't want to redo the whole filter again, but I'm just going to delete this, and I'm just going to copy. I'm going to filter now for employees. So I'm going to do that data filter, advanced filter. I'm going to say copy to another location. I have to tell it which range. So it's going to be range employee, and I'm going to copy it to where my old list was, and I'm going to do unique records, and I click OK, and it gives me the list again. And now I have to tell it, okay, what are we looking at? I have to tell it that I want to look at my employee column. And I click OK. And I double click here. But it's exactly the same process that we've been doing. It's just, you just choose a different column to report on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any questions? I have a few things before we go. We have other reports, but they run exactly the same and report. Let me just go back to my wizard and report screen. We have the registration report, which runs. Do you want me to go through that, through the registration report? Okay, let me just go through it. And basically, the registration report gives me all the data that I get in the one-click report. but it gives me filters to decide time frames and store groups. So I'm gonna run it first for my store. I'm gonna enter my store code on the business unit ID identifier, and I'm gonna click next step, and I'm gonna run it for my whole store. So I'm gonna click US Demo Store, and I click next step, and this is where I can customize the fields that are gonna show up in my report, but I just wanna use the default right now. I click next step, and I can run it as an Excel or as a web page. For now, I want to run it as an Excel. And these dates here, I can customize. So if I want to see everything that's ever been done in my store, leave all the fields blank. If I want to see only courses that are completed within this year, I can just start with 1/1/2012, and current date is 5/02/2012. And it's going to give me everything that has been completed in my store for this year. And it's thinking, and I'm going to do a download file. I'm clicking on that blue line on the top, and I click download file, and my computer wants to retry it. And I click on open to open the file, and it's gonna open the report. And I'm gonna expand the view by selecting the whole field and expanding the column. And this is everything that has been done in my store for this year. And then I can use that same filtering and count function to be able to get my data in here. So that is the registration report. I don't want to save it. I don't want to save this. And I'm gonna close my wizard and go back to the tools. And there's one more report that I think is very important, and it's the student report, and that's the one that you're gonna use to see who has accounts in my store. That is the one that is gonna tell me what their username is. It's gonna tell me their email address, when they register, and what status they have, whether they're active or inactive. So that is. If you guys don't have any questions, I just wanna. Are there any questions? Okay, so I don't hear anything. I just wanna ask you, please, if you can go now to our homepage, and there's gonna be a link there for feedback. I'm very interested in knowing what you thought about this experience. If you think we should be doing this more often, if we should go in more detail, or what topics you think we should be working on. Join us on Facebook. We'd like to have discussions on these topics, and send us an email to igainstitute@igainc.com to let us know if you want to be part of our advisory board and participate in all the plans for the Institute.
Thank you all for your participation. It's Paul again, and if you are interested, like Anna said, please send us an email. If not, I wish you all a great week.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any questions before we hang up? No? Bye.
Okay. I will call you guys.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.